Hello, my name is Naomi Hen, and today I will diagram and explain the form of Clementi's second sonata from Opus 33. Before I get into the specifics of this piece, I need to make sure everyone is on the same page. That means whether you understand everything about sonata form, or you aren't even sure why you're watching this because music notes look like alien scribbles, I'm going to explain the basics of sonata form. Sonata form has three parts to it. It begins with an exposition section, which introduces all the themes and different ideas that will be popping up through the entirety of the piece. Next comes the development section, which takes those themes and tinkers with them, exploring different possibilities for a while. Eventually, the sonata gets tired of messing around and heads back to what's worked before, starting the recapitulation, which basically repeats the exposition with a few tweaks. In our exposition section, we expect to find two distinct sections. The first section begins in the tonic key and stays in the tonic key throughout the whole idea. This section is called the primary tonal area. The second section, the secondary tonal area, moves from the tonic key into another key, usually the dominant key, and then stays in the dominant key, which prepares the audience's ears for the development, which takes the new key and runs with it. At the end of the primary tonal section, there's usually a transition section that adapts the listener's ears to the new tonal home through modulation. At the end of the transition, there's usually a half cadence in the new key. This is called the medial caesura, or the MC. The secondary tonal area follows the MC and continues until there is a perfect authentic cadence in the new key. This is called the essential expositional cadence, or EEC. Usually searching for this cadence makes me so annoyed, I call it the EEC, and that's how I will be referring to it from here on out. The EEC introduces the closing section of the exposition and traditionally ends in another perfect authentic cadence in the new key. This is most of the terminology you need to know going forwards in this analysis. The reason I explain the exposition in such detail is, well, Clementi had a pretty good time messing around with what an exposition should be like, and there are some parts that deviate from the norm. On the surface, everything looks pretty normal. We have our primary tonal area and our secondary tonal area. Our piece starts off in F major, and the theme ends with a PAC, like we expected. The piece now flows into a transition, starting off in F major, but modulating into C major. The modulation comes about through the following chord progression. Essentially, what we have going on is Clementi making a lot of fluff on very little substance. I have outlined the chord progression here, summarizing the 32 measures of what I call transition into a straightforward outline. He waffles back and forth from 1 to 2 before sticking in what seems to be a purely random B diminished in the first inversion, adding a seventh, and then taking it to the third inversion. Next, we have something that finally makes sense. The dominant of the dominant. This is where I start analyzing the piece as though it is now definitively in C major. Following that is a minor 6/7 chord in the third inversion, and then 5, and then 1/6/4. Then 7 in the second inversion, 1/6, acting as an easy transition to 1 first inversion. 7 again acts as a gateway for 1, as 7 diminished first inversion leads to 1 in C major. 7 diminished, minor 4, 5/7, 6, 5/6, 1, finally, cadential extension of 5/7 in the second inversion, and then 1. Then we get another 7 diminished in the second inversion, minor 3, 5/7 of the dominant. Then we get the dominant fully, cadencing on it, and that's the half cadence in the new key of C major, and it suffices as our medial caesura. After the medial caesura, the modulation of C major is complete, or at least it's supposed to be. Clementi apparently liked to be difficult, so we're expecting the secondary tonal area to be entirely in C major and end in a perfect authentic cadence in 5, like it's supposed to. But no! Clementi decides to take the end of the secondary tonal area back to 1, which is in F major. This totally messes with the eek, which is supposed to be a pack in 5, and he writes an in a perfect authentic cadence in 1 instead. To rub it in our faces, Clementi puts a nice long fermata over this IAC before moving into the closing theme, which finally ends in 5, which we were hoping for. And then the exposition goes and repeats itself all over again, which a lot of expositions tend to do. The development is fairly straightforward, dancing around in C major while not really sounding centered in a key at all. The recap basically restates everything in the exposition, just embellishing it a little, turns the closing theme into a nice page-long coda, and then voila! That's the form of Clementi's Opus 33, number 2, Sonata. I hope this explanation was clear and concise. Thank you for watching. And always remember that composers can be as non-conforming as they want to be, and the rest of us are stuck trying to explain why. Happy Finals Week!